Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. This is round number 2 of this season, coming to you tonight from Indianapolis. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Adam Thomsen. Joshua Wilkie is our producer for tonight's broadcast. After a brilliant season opener 1 week ago at Portland, we keep the momentum going, hopefully here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. It's been the host of at least one INDYCAR race every single year since 2014. But this track, originally designed to host the United States Grand Prix back in the year 2000, is a bit polarizing to fans and drivers respectively. There's really nothing like the IMS road course, so Adam, I really expect that this is going to be a race very much so of its own kind.
Oh yeah, of course you got to worry about the 14 corners, especially turn number 1. Very sharp entry on the start of the lap, and of course a lot of incidences can happen there. And of course when pit stops start happening, just the way that the pit lane merges into the corner can get a little bit spicy. But after that, a very flowy circuit, as you would say in the road course world, with some very interesting chicanes. And of course we've seen in the actual IndyCar racing series some pretty decent racing around this Indianapolis road course during the month of May. Of course, these drivers are just happy to be in Indianapolis and getting that fever for the Indy 500 at the end of the month.
And speaking of running at the Oval, we're actually going to be running at the Oval in 1 week's time here in the XMS ICS series, but more on that in 1 week's time. For now, though, we got the road course to contend with, and as you said, Adam, it's a track that can produce some pretty competitive racing in real life. Some of the margins in qualifying sessions in the past have been so incredibly tight, and just even the races as well in real life have been super competitive. This is also a track where some of these drivers tend a bit more towards doing well if they have a European motorsports background, but regardless, I think as we are still in this qualifying session, seeing these drivers tackle this racetrack, we're just going to get a good feeling for how these drivers are going to tackle it. It's a tough track, this. I was doing a couple of sort of sight-out laps a little bit earlier on this afternoon, and maybe it was just my car having a bad setup, but the first few laps coming out of pit lane, it felt like there were cookie sheets under the rear tires.
Oh, these tires get very, very cold, and it takes a little bit of time to get them warmed up. But once they get turned on, they're really good around a circuit like this. You also got to remember, this is blacktop asphalt compared to last week at Portland, which is not that type of track. So the asphalt definitely going to warm up a little bit quicker than the normal asphalt would, as Sophia Connell foots up the first time lap of the session, a 1:10.270. Will be interesting to see what happens here as Stephen Huddock goes second quickest, and Jake Vasconcelos goes now to the second spot with a 1:10.734. Taj Edwards third quickest, and Charles Hoza currently in fifth. Wyatt Franklin puts up a time in sixth place with a 1:12. Jake Mackey with a 1:13.064, and Joshua Chinsky goes to the 1:10.745. So some very interesting lap times to start off this qualifying session here. Ron, as Sophia Connell, quickest out on the track, was the first one on track with that 1:10.270.
Still a pretty long time left to go, though, in this qualifying session. 20-minute long open qualifying, so these drivers do have to share the track with their competitors, and you can see a bit of overtaking heading down that back straightaway off into turn number 7, Holman Boulevard, around this rather historic motorsports facility. One of, if not, I believe, actually, I'm going to fact check myself. Yes, this is the only track from this entire season that I've been to in real life, and if anyone hasn't made the pilgrimage out to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway before, I would highly recommend it. I'm definitely a little bit biased. I'm an IndyCar history nerd, and even before the recent renovations they did to the museum, the IMS museum was basically my version of heaven on earth. But the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is just an absolute gem in the world of racing. There's a reason why one of the most historic NASCAR races, and obviously the Indy 500, one of the most historic, and frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the most historic race, point blank period, in the world of asphalt racing. is the Indy 500. It's just an absolutely amazing track. This road course, though, it's seen some alterations over the years. As I said, the first host of the United States Grand Prix back in 2000. This current configuration was first run back in 2014 when INDYCAR decided to run here. They added in the 5 and 6 chicane. You can still run on the old version of the track that Formula One ran on towards the end. You could just barely see that small little dogleg detour coming out of turn number 4. But this quick chicane was added in for those Indy cars back in 2014, and that is just such a painful section, especially when you're coming out pit lane with some killer curbs coming at it.
Well, of course, you also got to think back in the NASCAR world. NASCAR has raced on the Indy road course as a replacement for the Brickyard 400. Joey Logano went over one of those curbs and straight into the wall. Just actually multiple cars did in that race back in 2020 for the Brickyard race around Indy. And it caused some carnage in that 5-6 chicane. So that is a deadly chicane. If you just hit it just wrong, you can catch some air underneath the car and you are on for a wild ride.
An absolutely brutal ride as well, as we see very slow on the racetrack right now is Ballard in the number 29 car. Yet to set a lap time thus far in this qualifying session. This is just one that's really tough to nail down. You've got that traffic to deal with, which is, okay with the grid that we've got. That's not going to be too bad of a factor here at this just a tick under 2.5 mile long racetrack. But no, just dealing with those off tracks and also getting your lap times invalidated is going to be tough. Considering this track used to host F1, it shouldn't come as a shock that track limits are a pretty big issue here for drivers in real life and in the sim. And I was actually looking through some of the off-limits rules, and basically on turns like turn number 1, turn 6, heading through that quick chicane, turn 7 at the end of backstretch, and turn 12, heading into the infield right towards the very end of the lap. That blue and white curb on the inside, that's fine. We'll be able to see it right here with Sophia Cano, your current provisional pole sitter. You can take liberties on the curbs. If you step over that limit, though, you're gonna pick up a lap time invalidation. So these drivers have even more fine lines to raise. You want to use as much track as you can, but at the same time, getting slapped in the wrist by iRacing starts to hurt after a while.
Well, looking at lap times right now, it doesn't seem like many drivers have improved, which is surprising considering we are almost at that 8-minute mark here, Ron. And that is kind of questionable to know if our drivers just not getting the grip down or are they going off track. Compared to last week at Portland, where we were seeing faster lap times about every 3 to 4 minutes in qualifying. And that's how we end up with the qualifying shootout that we did. And Sophia Cano being the first one out on track may have lucked out and having that 0.2 of a second advantage. Now Steve Huddock, right now in that 44 car, looks like he has a quick Sector 1, Sector 2 personal best. Let's head over to him and see what he is up to here. You can see taking those fine lines there, not getting all 4 tires off the track. He is purple Sector 3. Now this is the tough part. You got to get, it feels like you got to go hard through there, and that's exactly what can happen. You can understeer going in to the last couple of corners off the oval part, Ron, and I don't think that will be the only person that does that today, especially in qualifying trim.
I have a feeling we're going to be seeing deja vu when it comes to that in this qualifying session. Coming up to the halfway mark already, man, these 20-minute long qualifying sessions blow by in the blink of an eye. Sophia Connell's still very quick at a 110.265. Bailey Pietrowski has jumped up to second, as that's a pretty big spin from Josh Shinsky coming out of the first series of corners. Coming out of turn 2, you don't have a lot of time before you have to gas up on the throttle and deal with the following turn of turn number 3. That section real tough to try and nail down, especially with some tires that are maybe feeling the burn, so to speak, running around here. And considering the track temperatures are presently set at 103 degrees Fahrenheit, I have a feeling we may have to talk about a bit of tire preservation in this 30-minute long race that we have coming up. But Adam, one point that we should probably raise is the driver who won last time out at Portland, Dave Menino. He was not in the practice session earlier on. very similar to what he did at Portland 1 race ago. He's now joined this qualifying session, so let's see if the three will be able to make it back-to-back poles to kick the season off.
Well, that would be absolutely incredible, especially with how tough the IndyCar is to drive around here. If you were watching last Sunday, of course, we had a little bit of fun around the Indy Oval. Yours truly was leading the race at one point in time until hitting the wall. But these cars are just so fine and so, when they get up in the high speed, you get all the grip, but then you don't have power steering. And that's what makes these cars really understeer through some of these corners. I would be surprised if Dave Menino is able to get to that fastest lap time because, again, we're not seeing much improvement as Taj Edwards has the fastest sector 4, but no one is actually really improving time as Dave Menino's first attempt here is a 1:10.659. So he has to make up 4/10 somewhere. And that's one of the challenges about this track is where do you find that time? And really it's going to be turn 1 and then turn 12. Those are the two places that you can really make up a lot of time. You can't make it up in the chicane because it's a high-speed chicane. There's not really a whole lot of time to be gained through there. But the last sector of the course, that's where you can really, you can gain a 10th or 2, braking just a little bit later. But if you brake too late, you're going to understeer off into the grass. It is just one of the tough courses in IndyCar racing just because there's just so many things that can go wrong than what can go right.
Yeah, and in all of that, you brought up a good point, Adam, talking about how the only real spots where you can improve your time are in the final half of the lap. You look at turns like turn number 7, that heavy braking zone right towards the tail end of the circuit. The track also bottlenecks there as well. It goes from about 4 to 5 lanes wide into like 2 or 3. So you aim for an apex that's probably about 5 meters at the very least farther away than where the apex actually is. So it's super tough to try and nail down turn number 7 around here. Turn 10, one of those other turns around here where you do have to think about track limits with that curve on the inside. One of the only bits of track limits where it is a flat curve that you have to worry about. The rest of them, turn 1, turn 12, you've got those inside curbs which can just basically act like a ramp in these Indy cars. You hit one of those and your car will probably do an impression of a kite, which you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that that is not a very good thing to do when it comes to lap times. So these drivers looking to avoid that at all costs. Josh Shinsky jumped up to P3 not terribly long ago in this qualifying session and is only 1,000th of a second behind Bailey Piotrowski in P2. So there is still a little bit of time to be gained out here on the racetrack. Track temps remaining the same at about 103 Fahrenheit. And pretty much no rain in the forecast at all, and no clouds in the sky for that matter either. So looks like it's still going to be burning hot between now and the checkered flag, so these drivers just have to survive their trip in the sauna.
The 44 cars quickest in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2, but Sector 3 currently down on the timetable. Can he finish that lap? Wow, that's Stephen Huddig in that car 44. Also, Bailey Piotrowski, fastest Sector 2, but is down in Sector 1. That is a cause for a little bit of concern as Huddig crosses the line, jumps up into the 4th spot with a 1:10.387 here. Let's see, Piotrowski, he will cross the line here in just a moment, and he does not. He does go to pole. 1:10.114, just under a 1/10 of a second separating Piotrowski and Sophia Connell. And Dave Medino, currently 6th fastest, currently down in Sector 2. He's got a lot of time to gain still if he wants that provisional pole, but being 6th quickest right now with that 1:10.659 and not improving at all in the lap, he's probably not going to get it done this time. He's going to have to go back to the pits with just now 6 minutes to go on the clock. And that's where it's going to get really spicy, I think, here in the tail end of qualifying here, Ron.
Yeah, it's going to get intense. These drivers still being able to find just a little bit of time. And as we've talked about a lot throughout this show already, the margins here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course can usually be pretty tight. A matter of a couple of tenths can make the difference between you starting this race in P2 or starting all the way down in P6. Dave Menino, our pole sitter last time out at Portland, is currently set to start in 6th if he can improve in the final 5.5 minutes of this qualifying session. Currently at a 1 minute 10.6, but there are a lot of drivers tracking pretty okay lap time. Stephen May in the 55 car is tracking pretty good, a personal best in the first 2 sectors. So let's see how he'll be able to complete the second half of the lap. As here's Charles Hosea across the line now in the 100 car. Let's see if the Rockefeller Racing competitor can improve. He cannot. It was only 12 thousandths of a second, though, between him matching his previous best lap time or setting the time that he set there. Here's Stephen May in the 55. Just talked about him a couple of moments ago. A little bit slower the 3rd sector. Currently tracking... currently setting a 112.356 in this qualifying session, crosses a line, improves into the 111s at a 111.9, jumps in front of Wyatt Franklin. Not the biggest improvement in the world, but it shows you how the small gain can make a big difference, as that's Vasconcelos with a big off-track moment hanging through the chicane.
Well, let's take a look at that one more time. Jeff just went over the curb, lost the rear end of the car, and boom, right into the tire barrier. Loses that rear wing. Also, I want to mention here, Sophia Connell, 0.02 of a second away from pole position with Bailey Piotrowski up there on the pole. So very, very close in the battle here for the pole position. But it's just a matter, can you find those extra 200ths of a second? It's going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I think the best way I can describe finding the time around here is it's like walking up a flight of stairs. You know, you can get one gain, then another, then another, then another. I feel like when it comes to the Indy cars, that's usually how it goes. It's not just a constant ramp. You need to take that extra step. It goes up, then you plateau, then it goes up, then you plateau, then it goes up, then you plateau. Getting past that small little jump up is super important, as we see that as a big moment from Adam Ballard. He is not having a good time at all in this qualifying session. Is the driver, the number 29, currently set to start this race in P13 at the last of the driver's set qualifying time. And that's not going to help him out, as Josh Chinsky jumping up to the pole. There we go.
Wow, 110.078, almost a 10 flat. And Piotrowski in the 115 car, he's coming out of the final turn now. Where is he going to end up? He's going to probably go to provisional pole here. And he does a 110.053. Everybody's starting to slightly improve just a little bit, as we are now less than 3 minutes to go here in qualifying. And this is where things, like I told you, Ron, I told you we were going to get a little spicy action out on the track, and it's starting to shape up like that. Sophia Connell was on that pole position for a long time, but it was just a matter of time before she was going to get kicked out of that spot. Now Sophia Connell is going to have to really put in that, really put pedal to the metal here, because they only have a couple of minutes left to get those flying laps in. And really, for anybody who's going out now, you will have one lap really that you can do. Anything beyond that, you're going to be looking into troublesome areas and trying to get your outlap done.
As I think one driver deciding to call it a day in this qualifying session is Bailey Piotrowski. That already just towed back and has now rejoined the racetrack. So I think Piotrowski wants some slightly cooler tires on that race car. Just give it one more burst at the end of it all here in this 20-minute long qualifying session. And because it is an open session, if you start your lap time with 19 minutes and 59 seconds on the clock, literally 1 second left, if you cross that start-finish line, you can still get another lap. So I wonder if Piotrowski's maybe going to be playing to that game a little bit. All I know for sure, though, is that Sophia Connell's out here on the racetrack. Showed some pace in the opening race at Portland 1 week ago. And let's see how the podium finisher last time out will be able to do right towards the end of this qualifying session. The 11 car currently set to start this race in third. You can see going through the braking zone of turn 1 through 2 right now. getting on that throttle pedal. You have to treat it as if there's an egg behind that throttle pedal. Otherwise, you are going to be spinning up those rear tires and taking a one-way trip into the grass and the gravel around this racetrack. Sophia Connell still looking to improve. I wonder if we're going to see anything from Bailey Pietraszki, or if we're going to see another challenge from Josh Chinsky in the 18 car, because he's still out there, I believe, and he's pretty quick. I mean, he's currently slotted in P2, so obviously some speed for the series admin.
30 seconds remaining to get across the line and start a lap here. Joshua Chinsky right now is on a lap, is not improving. Sophia Connell also not improving here. It looks like Pietraszki is going to be our pole sitter for the race coming up here in just a few moments time here. 10 seconds remaining on the clock. And if I'm that 115 car, I am sitting pretty right now. I'm putting a smile on my face. I might not even do this lap because nobody is improving out on the circuit. And no, they are not. Sophia Connell is done. Joshua Chinsky is trying to put in another lap, but is currently down on the times, and that's just because the tire energy in those alternate tires have gone away for another fast run here. So that's gonna do it, I think, here, Ron. I think the 115 is gonna be our pole sitter.
Yeah, it's looking very good for Pietraszki. Let's see if there's anyone else left across the line. But as you said, pretty much no one is tracking an improvement of their lap times. Even Bailey himself is currently not improving. And yeah, last time by set a time in the other one. No, he did not go slower. He pulled out an amazing final sector. He didn't even improve on the second and third, but in the fourth, he put in a cooker, and he's knocking on the door of breaking down below a 1:10, a 1:10.006 for Bailey Pietraszki, setting down a heater right at the end of this qualifying session. And with Stephen May coming down pit lane and Adam Ballard just saying a lap time a few moments ago, that will do it for this qualifying session. Bailey Pietraszki is your pole sitter here at Indianapolis. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then after that, we'll be able to have a chat with your pole sitter here at Indy.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best-trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org. The search is over. The most comprehensive league scoring solution is here, with the ability for multi-level championships, custom incident tracking, post-race time penalties, support for heats, drop weeks display, multi-car team scoring, advanced web widgets, rookie championships, a custom paint system, and load those results in seconds. Visit extremescoring.info today.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
Bailey Pietraszki, your pole sitter here at XMS INDYCAR Series around the Indianapolis road course. And on your screen, we can take a look at this pole lap time here. And We're riding on board with the pole sitter. Does a great job getting on the brakes nice and easy through turns into turn 1. Doesn't get onto the curb, but through turns 2 and 3 can get on those curbs just a little bit more. Gets the nice apex going. Now the high speed chicane through turns 5 and 6 gets that front tire over the curb, but not that rear tire. And that is what's causing a little bit of help, as well as the car in front of him getting the slipstream. Now turn 7 has to get on the brake very, very hard and gets to those corners nice and easy. Doesn't get hit the curb at all. Gets the apex absolutely perfect for an IndyCar lap. And now the tough section of the road course around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is coming off between turns 1 and 2 on the oval and into turn number 10. And now this is where it gets really spicy here. And now into the final corner. Got to get on the throttle hard if you want to get a good lap time out of here. Clips the grass just a little bit and comes across the line and puts up a 1:10.006 as your pole qualifying time here around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So that is an absolute stunning lap there, Ron, especially just the fact that Bailey was not only avoiding the curbs that they needed to avoid, but also got onto the curbs through 5 and 6 and didn't get that rear tire to stick in the ground and spin around.
Yeah, and that was a cooker of a lap from Bailey Pietraszki, a driver who I have a decent amount of experience watching races that he has been a part of. He is an incredible driver, and just based off of that performance in that qualifying session, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a case of deja vu yet again. And unfortunate, couldn't have a chance to have a chat with him. I guess he wasn't a fan of the snacks that we had in the broadcast interview waiting area, and just didn't show up. So unfortunately, we won't be able to have a chat with Bailey Pietraszki. Too busy with this warm-up session, I feel. Currently third in this warm-up session. These drivers just getting their eyes in for this race coming up. I think it's fair to say that Pietraszki is probably one of our favorites, but we do have some other quick drivers in this session as well, including Chinsky and also Sophia Conlon's at the top of warm-up.
Well, it's going to get really interesting as we are just approaching the end of the 5-minute warm-up period, giving these drivers just a one final look, especially on full fuel, seeing how the primary tires feel, getting the alternates down. Now, the tire strategy is completely different to Portland, for sure. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers start on the primary tire, move to the alternate tire, and then go back to the primary to end this race, or maybe do a primary alternate tire strategy. This is most likely going to be a 2-stop race, just because it's a 2.5-mile circuit. It's not like Portland, which is a lot shorter. So be mindful of that, Ron, as we're going into the race today. And I think we're going to get ready for our starting lineups.
That we are, and here is the starting grid for round number 2 of this season, and it's going to be Bailey Pietraszki starting this race from the pole. Joshua Chinsky set to join him on the front row. We have Sophia Connell starting this race in 3rd, alongside Stephen Hudick starting in 4th. Taj Edwards will start in P5, and we have Dave Menino, your race winner last time out of Portland, starting in P6. Jake Vasconcelos will start this race in P7. Next to Charles Hosea in P8. Eduardo Lorente will start this race in 9th, with Stephen May running out our top 10. Only 3 more starters in the form of Wyatt Franklin in P11. Adam Ballard will start this race in 12th. And Jake Mackey and Leo Dragado will round out your 14-car grid. Should be noted that I'm not entirely sure if we will see Leo Dragado in this race that we have coming up. Not sure if he has actually taken to the provisional grid to get this formation lap underway, and I'm not even sure if he's in the session at the present moment. Looking through, nope, I think he is not in here. So 13 cars set to grab the green flag here in a couple of moments' time. Adam, 50 laps of racing action in front of us. Have to worry about those pit stops, which were certainly a big factor in Portland 1 week ago.
Yep, it's going to be absolutely important. And of course, knowing what tire to go on at the right time. And looking through here, looks like everybody's starting on the primary tire. That does not surprise me one bit. Last week we saw a mixture of drivers on the primary and the alternate tire. So we are going to see probably a primary alternate strategy here. So let's, while we're on the formation lap, Josh, go ahead and pull up those point standings for us in the Drivers' Championship here. Dave Menino, the top of the points with 54 points. Sophia Connell with 41. Mitchell Green in third place with 35 points. Leo Dragata with 32 points. And our top, rounding out the top 5, Caleb Lehman with 30 points. And that is the look at your top 5. The rest of the points are there on the screen as we are just getting through the first chicane here. Of course, there is also a teams championship involved here at the Xtreme Scoring INDYCAR Championship, and SRT Esports currently on top of the table with 84 points. So pretty good championship already starting off here, Ron, and I think we're going to be in for quite a championship battle going into tonight.
Yeah, we have to start thinking about those points rather early on. You think, oh yeah, we only have one race on the board. Why even think about the championship points? We only have 8 races from this season, so it's not like these drivers have a million opportunities to try and score points. It's going to be a real hard-fought competition all the way through to the end of this season coming up in middle June, and you'll be able to catch all of the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, including the action from tonight's race. This is going to be a fun one, Adam. These drivers are going to be met with a whole lot of challenge. I think one of those biggest tests of all is probably going to be heading off into turn number 1 at the very start of this race. You mentioned some of the NASCAR races that have happened here back in 2021 was one of the first year the Cup Series ran here, and then they ran up until 2023 when they finally moved it back to the Brickyard for last season on the actual 2.5 mile long oval. Man, that first turn and the experience heading off through there, just looking at it from an audience perspective, it's like having your bones sit in vinegar for a while. That's the only way that I could really describe the viewing experience, seeing cars head off into turn number 1. Certainly got to be tough for these drivers. We've already had a barn burner of a race last time out of Portland. Let's see if we keep the momentum rolling here for round number 2 of the XMS INDYCAR Championship Series here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. The green flag's out and the drivers are on their way. Piotrowski, your pole man in the 115, gonna gun it early and try and jump out to a big of a gap as he can get, heading down into turn number 1, the hotbed for overtaking, the hotbed for some incidents. Let's see how these drivers can make it through this corner, hopefully as clean as they possibly can. Some lockups, so I think everyone negotiated that first corner cleanly. Piotrowski looking to use any sort of opportunity to jump into an early race lead. He's at the front. However, Sophia Connell, the 11 car, is looking to bring the Thunder slot at second.
Everybody single file through the first lap here of the INDYCAR road course. And of course, your leader, Piotrowski, currently going away, but now side-by-side action here between Dave Menino and Stephen Huddick. Menino, Huddick going back and forth, and now it looks like Menino had the advantage on the inside of the corner and is able to get the move done. Moves it to the P4 spot, but Charles Hosea right now currently in P6 ahead of Taj Edwards, who we're on board with right now, has moved up 2 spots here on the opening lap here. And of course, everybody with that push to pass. I don't see anybody using it quite just yet, and that's also going to be a factor in this one. And oh, we got a slide up, and that's Hosea hard into the wall. And oh no, just got out of shape. Those rear tires gave way, and into the wall he goes, and he doesn't have a front tire. I don't even know how he's going to make it through turn 1. Nope, he's not even going to make it.
Yeah, that car is ready for the scrap heap. A big sideways snap coming around the final turn. Had that happen in some of the practice laps I was doing with this combination a little bit earlier on, and Charles Hosea becoming the first victim here of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course's wrath. Let's see him go off the track, hang down into turn number 1. You can see that front left tire already snapped off. He ran wide heading through the corner, hit the grass, and took a one-way trip straight into that outside barrier. At that point, it's not even safer barrier that you're hitting, albeit safer barrier, concrete barrier, doesn't really matter. Not going to make a world of difference. You're still going to end up with a huge amount of damage on that race car. It may have had a little bit of trouble in the earlier stages of that lap. You can see he was getting some moves done early in that Rockefeller Racing number 100 car. Also had a bit of a snap heading through the chicane, so something clearly amiss with that 100 car at the very beginning of this race. He was running strong, running solidly inside the mid-pack, with that big moment heading around the final corner. Just immediately, bang, you can see that impact into the wall. Breaks the left front off. I can imagine that left rear tire was pretty screwed up as well. And because this series does not have any faster pairs allotted to these racers, that's going to be a DNF for Charles Jose. A tough break for him in the 100.
A very, very big, tough break for Jose. Again, great start of the race until the end of the lap. And, you know, the mistake, you know, just slight mistakes like that, especially on the grass, you are not going to make it out very well. And that's unfortunate for Charles Jose. But now we have a battle for the second spot between Joshua Chinsky and Savia Connell. Chinsky currently just over a half a second away from the number 11 car as they come around to complete lap number 3. And this is where, again, it gets a little bit tough through this sector. The dirty air that comes off these cars, especially in a course like this, is insurmountable. It is not fun to drive when you're in somebody else's dirty air, and you can get some very big aero wash. Of course, next week, that's when we will to have that conversation as well about the aero wash and lighting up the track. So that is something to keep in mind, is that some of these drivers are going to experience that aero wash and that dirty air on a course like this, and they're going to find a little bit of struggle here. Now Taj Edwards and Jake Vasconcelos battling for the 6th spot.
As these two drivers start to potentially battle for P6. Oh, Vasconcelos with a bad run heading through the chicane. That's not going to outbat his cause one bit. Heading down the back straightaway. May have had a moment potentially involving some of the drivers a little bit farther in the back. Touch on that here in a couple of moments. As look at Adam Ballard splitting the difference, going 3 wide, heading down the end of the back straightaway off into turn number 7. Picking off a 2-for-1 deal as Jake Mackey and Wyatt Franklin battled tooth and nail heading through the chicane. Ballard, who I was just going to mention, may have had some sort of off-track excursion, dropping down like a rock. He made his way up some spots. You could see that moment heading down into turn number 12, right towards the end of the lap prior. But Wyatt Franklin and Jake Mackey getting their doors blown off as it was actually synchronized locking up and down into the corner.
You lock up, I lock up, and the guy behind us locks up. How wonderful is that? And, of course, that's turn 1 for you. You're going to see a lot of that happening throughout this 50-lap race here. But Adam Ballard was the one to make it through and gains 2 spots out of it. And that was also with Jake Mackey using some push to pass and trying to stay out in front of this group. It just could not hold it down. Of course, when you're going through that section of the road course, you're going to get some good slipstream off the back of these cars.
Yeah, these Indy cars have a massive amount of drift, even on these road courses. And trust me, in 1 week's time, when we're running the first oval race of this series here, to be a bit more precise, on the famous 2.5-mile long oval, we're going to have to talk about that drift a whole lot throughout that broadcast in 1 week's time here on SMB. For now, though, we're caught up in the racing action here on the road course and the fighting going on involving Taj Edwards and Jake Vasconcelos as heated up yet again. The driver of the number 10 car had a bit of a sideways snap heading his way off through the chicane not terribly long ago, but he's in the draft. He's using that push to pass. Let's see Vasconcelos try and get this moved on Taj Edwards. Gonna blow his doors off heading down that start-finish straightaway into turn number 1. Vasconcelos gonna get that move done rather uncontestedly so to slip his way up into 6th.
Well, very good move there by Vasconcelos, currently now into P6. Somebody we haven't mentioned, it's up 2 spots, Dave Menino. Pretty quiet right now, has 3 seconds behind him and 1.7 seconds in front of him as we take a look at the overtake here with Jake Vasconcelos into turn 1, just as Ron said, blowing the doors off with that push to pass and gets into turn 1 first and takes the spot away from Taj Edwards. Also want to mention the battle for second heating up here, 0.3 of a second between Savia Connell and Joshua Chinsky. Chinsky using a little bit of that push to pass a little bit early on just to close the gap. But again, it's one of those things, using that push to pass in a road course like this, you know, it's going to have its advantages, but you really are going to only use it in 2 sections of the track, and that's going to be down this front straightaway. And then, of course, between right before the chicane, or right after the chicane in turns 5 and 6 and all the way down to turn 7. So you're not going to be using it. I would not be surprised if we saw some drivers, you know, have a lot of time on that push to pass if they are not in a battle, because there's no sense of using it when you're out in front of somebody. And currently looking through, nobody's currently on the push to pass. Joshua Chinsky has lost a little bit of time to Sophia Connell, and Sophia Connell right now is having a little bit of troublesome time trying to get to Bailey Piotrowski, currently 1.7 seconds down to our race leader. And now here comes Joshua Chinsky. He's going to use that push to pass. Kind of an odd place to use it, because you don't get very much time with it in that section of the track there, Ron. Very odd choice to use that right there between turn basically 11 to 12.
Yeah, a little bit odd to see that, as we see Chinsky yet again on the bun, heading down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. That's a bit more of a conventional spot for him to use it, but he's certainly been a bit heavy on that bun, already left with only 167 seconds left out of the 200 that he started with. The only driver to burn through more thus far is Jake Mackey, who's running a little bit farther down in the back of the pack. Just got moved on Adam Ballard not terribly long ago, who must have had some sort of mistake based off the fact he set a 116.8 last time by, so Ballard still continuing to deal with difficulties in that number 29 car. Speaking of, let's take a look at them. Oh my god, that is a wild off-track excursion. That's heading through right at the end of the infield section, heading down into turn number 10. And I think he just decided, was that maybe lap traffic involved in that potentially? Was that? No, that wasn't Sophia Connell right behind. What in the world happened there? It looked like he just decided to ride on the gas for a bit too long.
Well, these cars, you got to get off the throttle entirely. If you leave even just a little bit of throttle in going into a corner, you're going to be sent out wide, get a bunch of understeer, and it's not going to be a wonderful experience, as Mackey's enjoying taking that spot away. Has now gained 2 spots and looking at possibly a top 10 finish here. We're looking at something there. Didn't see anything wrong with Mackey. So, but Dave Menino has gained some ground onto Joshua Chinsky now. 0.7 of a second for the race winner last week. But Joshua Chinsky also trying to press the issue onto Sophia Connell. And again, this is where it gets interesting. We're only 9 laps in. I imagine these primary tires are going to go probably to lap 30, if I had to guess. Maybe even just a couple of laps sooner than that. We saw guys last week taking the alternate tire 30 laps, so can't imagine the primary can't make it there as well, especially even though it's a bigger circuit. So guys are going to be planning out those pit stops. It's also just a matter of what's the fuel level like for any of these drivers right now, and I think we're going to be in for quite a show here come about 10 to 20 laps time.
Yeah, once we get those pit stops started, it is really going to flare up in this race. But I think we've got a battle maybe starting to flare up involving the 2 SRT Esports teammates of Josh Chinsky and Dave Menino. They're essentially the sharks smelling blood in the water, and the blood is coming from Sophia Connell in the number 11 car. That Taylor Mills racing machine was quick in that qualifying session earlier on and got off to a pretty good start, but not looking good at the present moment in this race. Losing time still to Bailey Piotrowski, who's still your race leader in the 115. Chinsky and Menino maybe feeling like they can get a move done in the not too far off future. As speaking of getting a move done, here's a battle involving Stephen May and Eduardo Lorente, right on board with Lorente in the number 91 car, heading his way down Holman Boulevard on that back straightaway down into turn number 7. Lifting off way earlier than he really should have, just not risking it to go for a move heading off into turn number 7. As much as it's one of the heaviest braking zones around this racetrack, even heavier than turn number 12 that these drivers will come up to here in a couple of moments' time, Turn 7, just not really conducive to get a lot of overtakes done. If you get something done there, you have to get it done with authority, and you need to be alongside before you even think about getting on the brakes. And speaking of getting alongside, here's the battle between Connell and Shinsky. Shinsky on the inside, and they touch. Heading off through turn number 1, Sophia Connell going to yield that spot to Shinsky, who jumps up to P2. Now Dave Menino, who won last time out of Portland, got to look to try and get a move done to jump his way up into P3 in the number 3 car.
Well, what a move there by Joshua Chinsky. Take the second spot away, gets a little bit of separation with Dave Menino, makes a little bit of contact with the rear tire with Sophia Connell, but not terrible contact there to take each other out. And Joshua Chinsky now is going to take advantage of this. He's already half a second away and is growing that gap. So Dave Menino, though, is going to have to really work hard to get around Sophia Connell, because we saw the struggles that Chinsky had just to get around the 11 car. But Dave Menino won last week's race comfortably, we will say. But he's only just less than half a second away, so wouldn't be surprised if we see that push the pass come into play here for a pass down the front straight, and it doesn't look like he's actually going to use it. Being more conservative with that push to pass, maybe waiting for a good moment here later in the race, but also Sophia Connell is going to have to play kind of that buffer for Joshua Chinsky, even though they are teammates, as Ron mentioned earlier. So it's going to get, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see what's happening there with Dave Menino, getting closer every time, but just can't quite make a move stick, as our race leader currently 2.5 seconds down the road in front of everybody else. And looking to see, I was actually kind of predicting a Menino pass into turn 7 there, Ron, and unfortunately just wasn't close enough to make that move stick. But now is right there, now trying to go around the outside through turn number 11, now into turn 12. This is where it gets a little spicy. They're side by side into the final 2 corners of the lap, and Dave Menino in third, but the inside line belongs to Sophia Connell. Connell trying her best to defend the spot, but Dave Menino is going to use that push to pass, and Dave Menino gets the 3rd spot away. Sophia Connell had the push to pass on for just a moment, but realized it was probably a lost cause. Ooh. And now Sophia Connell dive bombs into turn 1, side by side through turn 1. Wheel-to-wheel action here through turn number 2. Sophia Connell has an inside line through turn 3. Dave Menino not going anywhere, and something happened. Nope, no, it did not. I thought Dave Menino maybe experienced a little bit of snap oversteer for just a moment, and Dave Menino through the chicane finally solidifies that 3rd place spot. And wow, what a driver Dave Menino is, to just keep along side by side, no one making contact. Sophia Connell with the dive bomb into turn 1. You can just see Dave Menino, he was not going away lightly there, and was going to defend back and make sure that that 3rd spot was his for the taking.
That was full commitment, full bravery as well from Dave Menino, sticking around the outside, hang off through turn number 4, basically putting Sophia Connell in a position where she had to back out. If she didn't back out of that, those 2 cars would have gone off the track in a cloud of dust, grass flakes, and steam. So you can even hear Menino has to lift a little bit as well. And all of that, you can just barely see that small little green speck a little bit farther up the road is Menino's teammate of Josh Shinsky. In that battling, the gap ballooned out between the 18 and the 3 to about 3 seconds. It will slowly but surely start to close up between those 2 competitors, as there you can see Shinsky heading his way to that chicane right as his teammate behind is exiting it. It's a pretty large gap between those 2 competitors, now occupying the final spots on the podium. Bailey Pietrowski is still your race leader in the 115. Sophia Connell may be looking to potentially get a move put back on Menino to jump her way back up into the final podium spot. However, there is one driver who is quickly getting involved in this battle too. Steven Hudek in the number 44 car has been putting in some pretty good lap times as of recent, just as his fastest lap of the race last time by at a 112.6, which if you look at the likes of Chinsky in a P2, who's about 0.6 of a second slower than his best lap last time by. And a lot of the drivers all throughout this field tracking slower than they ever have been in this race. The fact that Stephen Hudek, the time before last and this time as well, is still able to track his best lap times in this race. It's a bit of a gap that he has to try and overcome between himself and Sophia Connell in the number 11 car. But I think she may not be out of the woods just yet. Sophia Connell may have to worry about Stephen Hudek soon.
Well, it's just a matter of time, honestly. Hudek currently going just under 0.3 of a second faster than Sophia Connell. So just going to be a matter of time. But it is going to take a few laps, being almost 2 seconds away. But if I'm Joshua Chinsky right now, I'm going, dang it, I wish that battle was continuing on, because now you got your teammate behind you who is going quite quickly around here. Dave Menino, those last lap time at 12:44. Chinsky was a 13:27, so the lap time starting to get a little bit slower here as these tires are going to start hitting their drop-off points as we are heading on lap 16 here. Dave Menino, though, I am very impressed with his drive here so far. Started in the P6 slot, has moved up 3 spots, looking at the Hard Charger award for the night, and he's less than 2 seconds away from his teammate and looking at gaining second. Question is, does he have enough for Bailey Piotrowski, who is up the road by 3.6 seconds away from Joshua Chinsky?
I have a feeling that it may be a bit too much to chew if you are Dave Menino to try and jump up into the race lead in front of Bailey Piotrowski. However, Josh Chinsky, that's a realistic move to get a move done on your teammate. That gap has closed up a lot. It was about 3 seconds not terribly long ago. Now you can see these two cars about, I would say, probably about 150 feet apart, heading their way off through the slow crawl right towards the end of this lap. It's about 1.2, 1.3 seconds between those two competitors, and Chinsky's certainly feeling the burn. You can see him using up that push to pass still. Now only 125 seconds left in push to pass for him. And I mentioned this not terribly long ago that some of the drivers a little bit farther in the back, I believe it was Jake Mackey that I referenced at the time, had used the most amount of push to pass. Josh Chinsky has actually taken that award as of recent. He's already burned through 75 seconds. Dave Menino, he, on the other hand, he's been a lot less light on, well, he's been a lot more light on that bun compared to his teammates. He's still been hitting it quite a lot, 166 seconds left to go for him. But as we're on lap 17, coming to 18 this time by, I think Dave Menino has a real good shot to get the move done to jump his way up to P2.
Well, he's closed that gap quite a bit now, almost 1 second separating the two here. And actually, the gap has shrunk to the leader. It's now 4.9 seconds to Bailey Piotrowski. And that is where I think Dave Menino, he's going to be a little conservative with that push to pass, I think, now. Because I think he may be seeing a possible win on the cards. And why waste all that push to pass when if you get past your teammate, you can start utilizing it then. And again, now lap 18 of 50 starting here. And Dave Menino is closing that gap quite quickly. Now 0.9 of a second separating the pair between Joshua Chinsky and Dave Menino. Currently Hudek as well down the road as well in P5. Hudek right now is, I can't even tell the gap. I think it's 3 seconds. Yeah, it's starting to grow a little bit more now. So Sophia Connell safe for right now in that P4 spot. But again, we got the pit cycles to worry about here. And if it is a 2-stop race, which this first pit cycle will tell us whether or not we are going to see a 2-stop, I don't imagine anybody pitting on lap 20 to go to the alternate tire and taking that tire 30 laps. I'm predicting lap 30, lap 31, and trying to do 20 laps on the alternate tire for a possible 1-stop race here. Is now Joshua Chinsky using that push to pass down the front straight, trying to grow that gap. But Dave Menino, he's just enjoying sitting in that slipstream and going, please give me the suck here as we're going down into turn 1. And he didn't lose all that much time, even with Joshua Chinsky's push to pass use there.
You know, in one of my trips here to Indianapolis back in 2017, I stayed at a Motel 6. That comment that came out of your mouth a couple of moments ago, Adam, sounds like something that should have been said in the Motel 6 instead of the racetrack. But nonetheless, Bailey Pietraszki still put it on a pretty hard charge. However, that gap to himself and your P2 runner, Josh Chinsky, has kind of plateaued at. It's about 3 seconds as it has been for quite some time. I think Bailey Pietraszki is certainly in the cruising lane and certainly feeling comfortable just based off the fact he hasn't used a single second of push to pass, as Josh Chinsky has nearly burned up half of his. Here's Pietraszki in the 115 car. You can see him heading his way off through the tiny twisties right towards the end of this lap. He's probably feeling more confident now that those two SRT Esports teammates right behind him are maybe going to get involved in a battle in the not too far off future as well. So Pietraszki certainly feeling strong, and even when it comes to his pace, he has been rather consistent. If we can hold on this camera here, Josh, so I can take a look at some of the times that Pietraszki has set up to this point here in the race. He had just looked through. His fastest lap of the race was set on lap 2, so really striking while the iron was hot. But just looking through some of the last lap times that he has set, last time by 1:12.9, the time before then 1:12.8, and that continues on 1:12.6, 1:12.7, 1:12.8, 1:12.7, 1:12.6, 1:12.8. He has been so consistent in this race. The only sort of outlier times that he has had was probably last time by was his slowest at a 1:12.966. Outside of that and lap 1 where he had the start, so it's a bit understandable why he was in the 1:15s then. Pietraszki has just been so incredibly consistent, and from my past experience covering Bailey, that's what makes him quick. He's quick, but he can just keep that car on the road as if it's not even a person behind the wheel. It's just a robot or an alien controlling that race car.
Well, I mean, if you look at the picture of him, he's got that amazing hair and the sunglasses going for him. And, you know, he's got to be a calm, cool, and collected person, especially in a fast race car like these, because, you know, just the slightest slip up and your day could be over. And that is what's going to be the deciding factor as Adam Ballard is off and he is in that 12 spot. A rough go here for Ballard after making a really good move of early parts of this race, and you can just see him just goes off into the grass. Again, same situation. Yeah, it looks like the exact same moment.
Yeah, that was his moment from earlier on in the race, I believe, unless it was just a complete carbon copy. I'm pretty sure he lost out in the exact same spots. We'll say Stephen May ran into some difficulties. He had a spin coming out of turn number 12, right to actually turn number 13, my apologies. Lucky number turn 13, striking Stephen May there in the 55 as Wyatt Franklin in the lucky number 13 car had a big sideways snap right before turn number 13, coming out of turn 12, goosing it on throttle. These Indy cars are notoriously unforgiving, regardless of what kind of conditions you put themselves in. These drivers feeling the burn, as that was Ballard's moment, heading off through turn number 7, hit that inside curb. I think I said earlier on in this broadcast, Adam, talking about how you hit some of the big curves around this track, it feels like your Indy car gets turned into a kite, and I think we saw that get put on full display with Ballard a few moments ago, as coming into the pits is Stephen Connell and Stephen Hudek.
Fiat Connell, Stephen Hudek, both into the pits. Definitely a 2-stop for those two, as they will go to the alternate tire, unless they're going to go back to primaries and then do the alternate tire at the end of their race. And that's what Sophia Connell is doing, is going on the primary tire again. Knows that they're going to be doing a 2-stop race, and Stephen Hudek goes on to the alternate tire, so definitely a 2-stop for him as well. So, all right, this is where the tire strategy comes into play. Who's going to pick the right one? And a lot of these drivers are looking at a 2-stop strategy here. Actually, everybody coming into the pits here now. Bailey Pietraszki into the pits. Will be interesting to see what his tire choice is here, along with Joshua Chinsky and Dave Menino. I'm surprised to see how many guys are in pit lane. That means not a whole lot of fuel conservation going on. And with these Indy cars, you can choose your fuel map. Fuel map 4 and 5 are your fuel maps. 4 gets a little bit more, is a little bit faster than 5 on the road courses. And of course, 5, you know, you'll conserve a little bit of fuel at a time, but you also got to do it some with the throttle. The question is, what is everybody going to go on? Dave Menino onto the alternate tire. Piotrowski currently also on the alternate tire. And Joshua Chinsky chooses to stay on the primary tire.
Ooh, we got a drag race between the front two in this race, coming out of pit lane down into turn number 1. Piotrowski got to take that shallow line on pit exit. Very lucky if he avoided that white pit exit line. You clip that, you're going to pick up a penalty. And one thing to raise, talking about the pit stops as well, a little bit confusing as to when the pit lane speed limit line is, because you hit the end of the pit wall there you can see that white line. That's not where the pit lane limiter ends. That green cone and that line that goes along with it is where it ends. I've been caught out by that before. I've done many a broadcast where a driver has been caught out by that as well. May end up seeing that again in this race here tonight. But Piotrowski, he had this race under lock. Now, however, he's got a challenge with himself and Josh Chinsky. You can see those two drivers still nose to tail, and Dave Menino within striking distance as well. Menino and Chinsky, those two SRT Esports teammates, they have to take no fuel in that stop. You can see 8 seconds down pit lane. Oh my God, that's a big one. That's Chinsky going off.
Chinsky just slides off the track pretty much and into the wall. And he's got some damage. Don't know how bad. You saw little bits of carbon fiber being flung off the race car. His rear wing surprisingly stays intact, and his day is not over. But man, that was absolutely close. And I was sitting here going, I think Chinsky's on the proper tire strategy here, and he is going to the does he have a meatball?
Yep, according to iRacing's information, he's picked up a meatball flag and all of that. That car is not looking straight and true at all heading down that start-finish straightaway. As we took a look at the end of that replay, that was a big whack. There is no question or shadow of a doubt about it. May need to potentially load up another replay of some of the shenanigans we've had as of recent. It was looking so good for Chinsky. The only thing that was going to be playing out of his cards was the fact he used so much push to pass in the first half of this race. But as he was knocking on the door of the start of the second, he has that moment. I think you can see there's not a lot of aero damage done to that race car. Here's Dave Menino seeing his team car go off the track. That could have been so much worse there for Josh Chinsky. If he hit that wall a little bit harder, probably would have been completely game, set, and match. But you can see that front left tire immediately getting tweaked. He goes right onto the push-to-pass button as if that's going to help him out too much. He's had to come into the pits. These drivers don't have a faster pair allotted to them, so with a meatball flag, and you could just see the damage done to that race car. That front left tire was probably shoved back about 6.5 inches compared to what it once was, and you can see a little bit left-hand down heading down pit lane. He hits that pit box, and we're probably going to see him call it a night, because that will be an extensive amount of repairs to repair that 18.
Well, you know what, what happens here is that now Dave Menino has an opportunity to win this race. And what did I tell you, Ron, about 6 laps ago? Dave Menino is eyeing a potential race win here. They're both on the alternate tires, or they're both on the same tire strategy. It's all going to come down to who has the better pit stop.
Yeah, if you got a good stop, you're going to be feeling good. If you got a bad stop, you're going to be in for a world of trouble. Eduardo Lorente, he's come down into the pits. Credit where credit is due to the driver, the number 91. He has yet to use any of his push to pass, but in terms of that lead pack battle, neither is Bailey Piotrowski. If you are Bailey, though, in that 115 car, are you maybe going to hit that button a bit more now that you're feeling more of a burn than you ever have in this race? I mean, based off the fact that he spent 1.7 seconds longer down in the pit stall than his competitors, he had to have taken more fuel. This is affecting it, though. Stephen May in the 55 car kind of acting as a rolling roadblock. And here comes Dave Menino. He's on the bun. He's trying to get the move done, and he'll be able to blow both of their doors off, hopefully for him, heading down into turn number 12. Still side by side on exit. Pietraszki gonna get checked up yet again, heading through turn number 12. Finally clears him, but Bailey Pietraszki with a bad run-in with lap traffic will lose the race lead. Dave Menino, your race winner last time out of Portland, gonna jump into the race lead, and here's how he did it.
You got to remember, there's no blue flags in IndyCar racing, so Stephen May didn't have to get out of the way, and Dave Menino takes advantage into turn number 12 and gets the job done. An absolute stunning racecraft there. What racing smarts does Dave Menino have just to make that move? Sees the lap car, sees that Pietraszki is being blocked by Stephen May, and gets around of both of them in just a couple of corners.
And Dave Menino, imagine how you're feeling if you are Menino. At one point not terribly long ago, you were 3 seconds behind your teammate, who was 3 seconds behind Pietraszki. But in that series of pit stops, it has worked out to absolute perfection for at least one of the SRT Esports cars. Joshua Chinsky, on the other hand, he's called it a day. And you can see how much push to pass he burned in the opening stages of this race. He only had 77 seconds left to run the entirety of the second half of this race. Bang! Into the wall.
Damn. That's a feels bad man moment. And, you know, it's not like he did anything wrong. I don't know how in the world he lost it there. That is such an odd spin. You know, he didn't even, as we back up the replay here, because again, we gotta break this down a little bit here. Watch on board with Dave Menino. He doesn't hit anything, and a little bit of curbing, but even then, those curbs are flat. I have a theory about that. I gotta say, from my personal experience running this combination a little bit earlier on, and bearing in mind, folks, this is an open setup series, so these drivers aren't running an iRacing setup or a series admin created setup. These cars are just, actually, I say a series admin setup. Josh Chinsky is the series admin, so I guess he is running a series admin setup. But regardless, from my experience earlier on running on just the iRacing setups, regardless of what I ran, whether it be the setup for this track or whether it just be one of the like standard high, medium, or low downforce road course setups, I would always lose it heading through there. It is such a tough corner to try and nail down. You've got the transition from the flat part on that infield to the banking. I mean, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's not like a track like Daytona that we'll be visiting later on in the season, when those transitions from going off the banking onto it are going to be absolutely brutal. It's still not very easy, but he lost it before then. That corner is so tricky to try and nail down. It feels like it's open, then it closes up, and then opens back up yet again. You can't even say it's an increasing radius corner or decreasing radius corner. It's just one that is, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, a nightmare to drive around. I wonder if that track section was especially cool because of the shadows from the grandstands. There wasn't any sort of like major damage on that race car. I think it just flat out lost the grip, which from my experience, very easy to do, but still, it's a mistake that can only end in one way, and it's you smacking that outside wall. But, you know, I'm sitting here, I've had several experiences in the IndyCar on road courses, and especially on this track. I just sit here and I'm kind of stunned by that. You know, he is on the primary tire, so it's definitely not up to speed and warmed up, but just an odd wreck in that corner, because you are still pretty flat, especially where he lost it. You are pretty flat still before that transition. And even hitting the curb, that shouldn't have done it, because he looked pretty good through the curb. I don't know if he just if he just put the gas pedal down then too hard and spun the tires. I'm just sitting here going, how in the world does that happen? That is the strangest wreck I have ever seen in an IndyCar in that corner.
Well, I think regardless of how it's happened, the result is still the same. Josh Shinsky going to leave this race P12 at the end of it all. And that's going to be a big kick in the shins for the SRT Esports team. We were talking about this a little bit earlier on in the show. Right before we grabbed the start of this race, we were taking a look at the championship points. Shinsky, he is part of that SRT Esports team. Obviously, Dave Menino set to have a pretty good day here in the office. Oh boy, we're starting to get the hiccups on the air. My apologies, folks. But Dave Menino set to have a pretty good day if he can hold on to that race lead between now and the very end of all of this. But when it comes to that team's championship discussion, that is not going to look very good for SRT Esports, who entered this race with a championship points lead. That's going to be a real interesting thing to keep our tabs on throughout the rest of this season. Obviously, a night to forget if you are Josh Shinsky. He joins the only other retirement from this race in the form of Charles Hosea, who had a end of lap one crash in that exact same corner. He's currently slotted in P13 with Leo Dragota in the 118. Not even taking the start of this race. I'm not even sure if he lined up on the formation lap. So 13 starters, 2 retirements up to this point, 11 cars still out there on the racetrack. Your leader is Dave Menino. Bailey Pietrowski is slotted in P2. Stephen Hudek is running in the final podium spot. However, as we saw a battle between these two on screen of Hudek and Sophia Connell not terribly long ago, it looks like the shoe is going to be on the other foot this time, as Sophia Connell may be smelling blood on the water. Hudek had a big moment heading out of turn number 12. I think he went for a trip into the grass, as Sophia Connell has closed up that gap and may try to get a move done to jump her way up into the final podium spot.
Well, also, you got to remember now we're heading into the possible pit cycle here in just a few laps time for these alternate runners, because the alternate tires are not lasting the lap 50. They all came into pit around lap 21, 22. Yeah, the alternate tire is not lasting that long, and the fuel won't last that long as well. So that is something to cause a little bit of a stir here. Sophia Connell, I think anybody who's on the primary tire may have done a runner here, just because even though it's a slower tire, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You're going to get a lot more use out of it, especially in the middle part of the race. And the alternate tire coming in will come in probably with 10 laps to go. That's actually perfect for those kinds of tires around this length of a course. 2.5 miles here as Taj Edwards on that alternate tire. He is also trying to make up ground onto Jake Vasconcelos, who is on the primary tire. The tire strategies that have been happening the last 2 weeks have been very, very interesting. As we saw last week, we saw one stopper by Dave Menino. Again, a short course around Portland. This track, 2.5 mile course, lots of fuel consumption happening, and it's a lot faster, I will say, than Portland in terms of the speeds that you're going to be going. But it's just going to be a matter of question now: when do you pit? When are you going to make that final pit stop? How long? What are you going to choose? I can see a lot of drivers maybe going back to the alternate tire if they're already on it. Lots of things happening, especially if you're the crew chief right now. You're sitting there going, okay, this tire is good for this many laps. Should we continue it on or not? Ron, what would you do in this situation? Would you go back to the alternate tire, or would you go to a primary tire to end this race?
I would say usually in a situation like this, I would think, okay, yeah, I probably want to be on the primaries, but this track is just about as cool now as it ever has been in this race meeting here for round number 2 of the XMS INDYCAR Championship Series. 91 degrees Fahrenheit is your current track temperature, which is about 12 degrees cooler than it was in qualifying earlier on. And even in the earlier stages of this race, it was a little bit warmer than it is right now. Still not cold, but it's maybe a bit more, a bit less hospitable for these tires and for these drivers, as Dave Menino, he's actually come into the pits. Dave Menino in the 3 cars come down pit lane. He's now on those primary tires, and I believe that was a pit stop of That was just a regular pit stop. I don't believe he had any sort of outstanding penalties and all of that. So Dave Menino being the first to pounce, and he's going to be on those black, oh boy, I apologize for that voice crack, those black sidewall primary tires. I can say that without sounding like I'm 12, as I think this may end up being a good call for these drivers who are going to be on alternates at the end of this race. The conditions are kind of allowing that to be a good option.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to be interesting to see where Piotrowski comes out at, as he is into the pit lane as well. Can Dave Menino get the pass by here, or has Bailey Piotrowski ran that overcut potential here and gets the race lead? But this is a very long pit road. You're just sitting on the pit limiter going, get me to my pit stall quickly here, please, please, please. And he finally is going to creep in here. Question is, does he go alternate or primaries? I would not be surprised if he tries to go on an off strategy here. It's going to be close, and he is going on the alternate tire. So he refuels, gets a new set of red-walled alternate tires, and Dave Menino retakes the race lead.
Yeah, and this is going to be a chase down of ultimate proportions. It's a big gap that Bailey Piotrowski has to try and overcome, but hey, if anyone's going to do it, it's probably going to be the driver who is feeling very confident in the earlier stages of this race. Piotrowski still incredibly consistent as well in this event up to this point. So let's see how it's all going to shake out with Menino. If Piotrowski can get this done, it will have to be done in the next 10 laps, I would probably have to say. Once we get towards the end of this race, I feel like it just will not be enough. Piotrowski won't have that rubber underneath him. At this point, though, if you're Piotrowski, he still hasn't hit that push-to-pass button. You should be hitting that as it stands presently. We only have 14 laps left, and Piotrowski hasn't used a second. You've still got 200 seconds left to go. Burn it up. Burn that 200 seconds away as if it's a small little bit of paper that you never want to see touched by mankind again.
Well, it's going to be interesting here. Now we're going to get some timed laps in, and we'll be able to see the difference in pace between the primary tire and the alternate tire. So remember, a 1:12 for Dave Menino, 0.07. And for Piotrowski, this is what's going to be the key factor. Can you gain enough time? He's already 0.3 up in Sector 1. As you can see here on the bottom of your screen. Thank you very much, Josh, for that. Gets a little bit over the curb, but keeps her intact for Piotrowski, but he did that in his qualifying lap, too. He got over that curb a little bit. In Sector 2, up a tenth, so he's already up over 0.4, almost a half a second on this first time lap, and he's got to make up 5. He's already down a second to Dave Menino, and that time is quickly closing. Maybe Piotrowski has pulled a runner here with the alternate tire, but he's got to make the move quick and try and pull a gap before that tire falls off.
As more drivers come down pit lane in the form of Taj Edwards and Jake Mackey. Those two drivers have had some very different races, but still a decent amount of time left to go. Not world's amount of time, but just enough to maybe have a good run at the very end of all this. Look at Bailey Piotrowski finally on that push to pass. He just set a cooker of a lap time last time by, a 1:10.9. Holy cow. I mean, compared to some of the times that other drivers have set in this race, Piotrowski setting in a burner. Holy cow. Piotrowski's here. He's here to race. He's here to fight. He wants that checkered flag.
He wants that win so badly, but he's got some traffic in front of him, so he's got to be careful of how he approaches lap traffic. But he's already over 0.3 of a second faster than Dave Menino on this initial lap, as Dave Menino now using that push to pass as well, trying just to gain whatever time he can gain and stop the bleeding. That's what's happening right now. The time is bleeding between Dave Menino and Bailey Piotrowski. And Piotrowski, he's already half a second quicker on this lap. He's down to 3.3 second gap between him and the race leader once the pit cycles play out. And this is where it's going to get real interesting. Does he use that push to pass now? No, he does not. He's going to hold on to it. If I'm him, you got 12 laps to go. I'm pressing that button as much as I can between now and the end of this race. But again, Piotrowski was a half a second quicker on this previous lap, and lap 36, he was over a second. I was calculating the math in my head, and I'm not very good at math. Thank you, public school system. And you could tell that he was much quicker on that lap because he closed that gap quickly here. And now this second lap on these alternate tires, not nearly as quick, but still a half a second taken off of Dave Menino's gap. I mean, Baylor Piotrowski might get this done here, Ron.
And you can just see how much that gap has closed up over the past couple of laps since that pit cycle. Stephen Hudek and Sophia Connell have come down pit lane. Both of them have from P1 and P2 in this race. Dave Menino, you can see him having a bit of a lockup heading his way down into turn number 13. It may not seem like much, but those small little mistakes can start to pile up in these Indy cars. I think we talked about this a lot for the last round of this championship at Portland, but it really rings true here at Indy, where outside the start-finish straightaway and the back straightaway on Holman Boulevard, really have no time to rest. It's a mind game running these Indy cars around this track in one of these races here in the XMS INDYCAR Championship Series. Just constantly running at the front, running as quickly as you can, getting the most amount of performance out of your race car as you possibly can. It's a super tough ask. These drivers are certainly doing it, though. But you gotta get to thinking about mental fatigue in some of these races as well. But for Bailey Piotrowski, there's one game that he has in mind, and that is ringing that gap. Even with using just 4 seconds of push to pass, and that wasn't 4 seconds that was used earlier on, that was 4 seconds he's used since the pit stop, and that's the entirety of the race as well. So I'm not sure if Bailey Piotrowski just thinks that the push to pass button probably means that's going to explode his car, and maybe it's just a good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel. If I was Bailey Piotrowski, I would break that push to pass button off of my steering wheel.
Using that push to pass, as you can see, that is the number on the right side of the tire graphic there on the timing tower now, and when somebody's using it, it will light up in red. So that is what we'll keep our eyes on. We do also have live timing on our side here behind the microphone, so we can actually know what's exactly happening out there on the track here. Piotrowski's now dropped the gap 2.5 seconds. This is getting spicy here, Ron, but as the longer this run goes, those primary tires then look a lot better than the alternate tire in the closing stages of this race. We are now on 11 laps to go here of this 50-lap race. Dave Menino looking at trying to take back-to-back wins. What really helped him is that he had a teammate that he could lap around with no issues. I'm surprised we didn't see much team shenanigans going on there, because Bailey Piotrowski had to get around him as well, eventually did. And now this is where it's going to be. This is crucial now for Piotrowski. And you're right, Ron, if I'm in second and I am on the faster tire, I mean, my wheel, the push to pass button on my wheel is the sticker is worn off because I've hit it a bunch, but I would be pressing it every single straightaway that I could just to close that gap.
Speaking of some drivers who are looking to push it, Sophia Connell just at the fifth lap of the race last time by a 1:10.7. So Sophia Connell still cooking with gas in that number 11 car. And let's see if the final podium spot will be hers at the end of it all. As a lot more push to pass compared to Stephen Hudek right in front in the 44, and it's only 4.5 tenths of a second between those two racers heading down that back straightaway off into turn number 7. And you can see how much that gap closes up. Sophia Connell clearly confident heading into the braking zone around this racetrack. Just saw that got put on full display, using that push to pass yet again in this small little blast between turns number 10 through 11 right now. Back up onto the high banks for a very brief period of time, down into turn number 12. And all of that, the gap is still close between Hudek and Connell. Got some lap traffic to worry about as well. That, I believe, is Jake Mackey that they're about to catch up to. And speaking of traffic, as we are going to see these drivers get Mackey taken care of rather well, that could have ended his ears with Hudek running into the back of Mackey, but it ends rather smoothly, heading down that start-finish straightaway. We're going to switch our attention back to Dave Menino, who is still burning up his push-to-pass quicker than Bailey Pietrowski is. Remember, Pietrowski is trying to chase him down for the race win, but he's not really forcing the issue too much when it comes to using that push-to-pass, which could be part of the reason why that gap has plateaued a teeny tiny bit. That or Bailey Pietrowski is just assigned to take it easy. Let Dave Menino burn up those primary tires a little bit. We've seen this a lot throughout this race meeting here already, Adam. Those alternate tires, those red sidewalled alternate softer tires on these Indy cars, they can get burnt up really quickly. If you just look at them the wrong way, they'll probably lose about half their grip. So I wonder if Bailey Pietrowski is just being the tire whisperer at this point, not really forcing this issue too much, just to pounce towards the end.
Well, you got to start thinking about it here, because now we're at 8 laps to go in the race, lap 43 of 50, and he did use the push to pass down that front straightaway. He's got to use it more. I really think if he wants a chance at winning this thing, he's got to start using it any straightaway, especially like now. Like, I would be on it right now just to gain that little bit of a time, just so you can kind of maybe possibly be a little bit closer, especially down the front straightaway. But he decides not to. He's at 1.9 seconds, and you're right, that gap is starting to plateau now around that 1.9, 1.7 mark. Dave Menino, he's using that push to pass like it's candy right now. He wants this win so bad. He is willing to go to 0 before the end of this race if it means that he is going to win this race. But Pietrowski just hanging back just a little bit. I mean, the gap has come down by 0.2 of a second on this lap, but it's not going down quick enough to make a move for the win. You got to use it now. You got to use your tools and resources. You know, next week you don't have a push to pass. It's all slipstream and using the draft on the Indy Oval. So might as well use it before you lose it for a couple of weeks. And right now, Pietrowski 1.7 seconds as Sophia Connell in P4. Now less than a half a second away from Stephen Hudek.
And one driver that I think should be, definitely deserves a shout out is your P5 runner of Eduardo Lorente. He hasn't used a single second of push to pass. He's basically running by himself at the present moment. Taj Edwards a little bit farther back, and Sophia Connell about 13 seconds farther up the road. So really no skin in the game for Eduardo Lorente in the number 91 machine to use his push to pass. So I wonder if he's going to make it all 50 laps without using it at all. That would be rather funny. Knowing my luck, though, he's just going to use it for a 1-second burst coming to the line just to mess with me. Which, in fairness, I can't necessarily blame him for wanting to do. But I do want to raise one thing on the push-to-pass discussion, as Pietrowski finally, oh my god, he used 3 more seconds a couple of moments ago. Despite the fact he's not really using that push-to-pass, he's still, tracking pretty good lap times, it must be said. Pietrowski potentially taking it easy, not using that push to pass. Dave Menino, on the other hand, he's burned through about 30 seconds in the past 4 laps alone. Those two are rather evenly matched. The past lap was one of the only few laps in quite some time that we've seen Bailey Pietrowski actually be outpaced by Dave Menino. So I really think that as much as Pietrowski is clearly not forcing the issue, only just being very frugal, just taking small little sips of that push to pass, he's still in it to win it, and that gap is now about 1.6 seconds. Dave Menino is maybe starting to feel the burn on that tires, because with that push to pass, it's not just a straight line advantage. You got to go into those corners with more speed, hit the brakes more, and you risk a lockup even more. We've seen Menino have some front lockups thus far in this stint. That could be part of the reason why Bailey Pietrowski, despite being very frugal with that push to pass, is starting to slowly but surely reel in the driver at number 3.
Hey, he finally used it 2 times in a row on a straight, so life is good. Now, I'm sitting here as somebody who has done a lot of crew chiefing for some for some drivers who do run IndyCar quite frequently, especially on road courses and on the Indy 500 on iRacing, I'm just sitting here pulling my hair out like, use the push the pass, please, for the love of God. And he's finally using it now. He's not using it as much as I would prefer to see him use it, but he's closing that gap even further now. It was 1.6 at one point, loses a couple of tenths into turn number 7, but gains it back here as we ride on board here. And if we could stick with this for just a little bit, just so we can see the speed advantage it has when you use that push the pass. I cannot preach this enough. In these Indy cars, if you got push the pass, you better well use it, because you can't use it on the last lap. You can't use it all. So you might as well start using it now, as we are now 5 laps away from the end of this one. As Dave Menino is back on that push the pass, now has 32 seconds remaining. Piotrowski uses his push the pass way longer than he has been in the past now. He's got plenty of it to go, so he doesn't have to worry about running out in the next now 4 laps here to go around the Indianapolis road course. And that gap not coming down quick enough. He's got to really put in some really good laps on this alternate tire, as that primary tire is now the best tire to be on.
Really, out of these two, though, Adam, the driver who I think is feeling the pressure more is Dave Menino. He's rapidly approaching upon the final 1/8 of his push-to-pass remaining. He's at 26 seconds. That is just going to be enough for him to come across the line. And anyone who hasn't tuned into IndyCar racing before, it's not like they run out of gas when they run out of push-to-pass. They'll be fine to make it to the end, but at the same time, if your competitor is 1/10 of a second behind right at the end of the race, you have no push to pass, and your competitor, let's say Bailey Piotrowski, has over 100, you're gonna be feeling good. You're gonna be feeling confident if you're the driver right behind. We also got some lap traffic to worry about as well. You can see just a little bit farther up the road. That, I believe, is one of the Rockefeller racing cars heading down into turn number 1 right about now. Not sure who that is. May potentially be Adam Ballard in the number 29 car, but nonetheless, this is going to be a choking point, okay? Right as I say that, the lap car gets out of the way without any major time loss to Dave Menino. Hopefully we'll do the same to Bailey Piotrowski. However, that gap has ballooned out yet again. Piotrowski using that push to pass, it's actually cost him out on some time. He was like 1.5 seconds behind Dave Menino not terribly long ago, now 1.9. I think Piotrowski, he's been trying to manage those alternates, but there's only so much you can do with those red sidewall tires.
Yeah, eventually those red sidewall tires do go away, and that's why it was so pertinent to make the move early in the stint and grow a gap and try and win this race, because that tire was going to fall off. And unfortunately, I think we're now seeing that fall off and that primary tire be the preferred tire by the drivers. And for Dave Menino, he called the strategy right. And he is looking at getting back-to-back wins now, as we are now 2 laps to go here on Slow Motion Broadcasting with the Xtreme Motorsports, Xtreme Scoring ICS League here. And this is an unfortunate event here for Bailey Piotrowski. Was running in the lead before those first pit stops. Then the group got the lead pack, was bunched together, less than a second separating everybody. And now it's Dave Menino's race to lose.
Yeah, it really is for the driver of the number 3 car. It has been a very valiant effort for him. It's a complete night and day compared to the challenge that he faced at Portland last time out. Had a bit of a challenge from Leo Dragato right towards the end of that race at Portland, but then Roy turned out too well for Dragato. In the end, it was the driver of the number 3 doing well at the end of all of it, but do we have a development here, Adam? Is there some shenanigans going on involving some of these drivers?
Looking through, it looks like everybody's kind of spaced themselves out here. And just to correct you, it was Lehman that was...
oh, yeah, it was Caleb Lehman, correct.
Yeah, Lehman was there as we now take the white flag one more time around for Dave Menino and Bailey Piotrowski. Even though he has used some of that push to pass even more, it's quite a gap now, 2 seconds to make up. But Dave Menino your race leader going through the chicane one final time here through turns 5 and 6 and into turn 7, utilizing that push to pass just to gain a little bit more time. But now Dave Menino, what a drive, gained 5 spots, will be the hard charger of the race. And he made some moves to get up to the race lead here, Ron.
Yeah, he put on some storming overtakes, and he just had to keep his nose to the grindstone from the drop of the green flag some 1 hour ago all the way through to the fall of the checkered flag right now. But Dave Menino in a familiar spot this season for the second time in 2 races. He's got to come out of the final corner, this time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, and take that checkered flag as the winner again here in the XMS ICS Series. Dave Menino is your race winner at the Brickyard. He's followed right behind by Bailey Pietrowski. Wasn't enough towards the end for your pole man. Still going to be a good performance from him nonetheless, but he probably thought that he could have gone a bit more. There's a podium for Stephen Hudek. He finishes 3rd in the 44 car. Sophia Connell finishes right behind in P4 in the 11, as we see Dave Menino burning it down in the runoff area on the outside of turn number 1. Dave Menino, that 3 car, didn't put a foot wrong at all throughout this race, and as other drivers fell off around him, as other drivers went for some ill-fated strategy calls, and his teammates crashed right in front of his very own eyes, Dave Menino withstood the challenge to grab his 2nd win in 2 races. Fantastic stuff from the 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, drivers like Josh Chinsky, I thought Josh Chinsky had the right strategy call by going to the primary tire, sticking with the primary tire on that first pit stop, and an unfortunate ending to his race, crashing into the outside wall in turn number 14. That's something he'll have to reevaluate and come back next week even stronger. But Dave Menino proving once again why he's on top of the standings, and he isn't going to increase that championship lead. What a race from Dave Menino.
Yeah, what a drive from him. As you said, the hard charger at the end of it all as well. And also, he did not burn up just 1 second. Eduardo Lorente stayed at 200 seconds of push to pass from the drop of the green flag all the way through to the checkered. And also credit where credit is due to Stephen May, who only burned about 16 seconds of push to pass in the entirety of that race, albeit ran into some difficulties towards the later stages. Is the last driver to cross the start-finish line to finish this race. As here's Taj Edwards, who's probably hoping that he could have gotten a bit more out of this race. Lost out 2 spots from the drop of the green flag through to the fall of the checkered. The driver of the number 88 car finishes in P7. But I think as we see these drivers come down pit lane, may want to load up those results at the end of round number 2 of the Xtreme Motorsports IndyCar Championship Series here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. 2 weeks in a row, and for the second time, Dave Menino is your race winner at the end of it all. Bailey Pietrowski gave him a challenge, but just did not have it towards the end. Finishes 2.5 seconds behind in P2. Stephen Hudek runs at your podium in 3rd. It's Sophia Connell, who had a pretty hard charge in this race. Finishes in 4th. Credit where credit is due to Eduardo Lorente, who didn't use any push to pass and rounds at your top 5 in the number 91 car. Finishing this race in 6th is going to be Jake Vasconcelos in the number 10. Taj Edwards in the 88, who I talked about a few moments ago, will finish in P7. We have Wyatt Franklin in 8th, Jake Mackey in 9th. Adam Ballard rounds out your top 10, with Stephen May running at the drivers to cross the start-finish line and finish this race. Joshua Chinsky and Charles Hosea DNF'd after incidents coming out of the final corner, and Leo Dragata did not take the start in the Dragon Sport Racing number 118 car. So those are your results from the second round of this season of the Xtreme Motorsports IndyCar Championship Series. Dave Menino is your winner yet again. We can see some drivers going up there in the interview waiting area. They're looking to have a chat with us, and Adam, I think I will pass it off to you to have a chat with our race winner of Dave Menino.
Dave Menino, our race winner here in the broadcast booth. Dave, back-to-back weeks, good strategy calls, and this one you didn't have to run away with, but it sure was a challenge towards the end.
Yeah, that was a fun race. Definitely Made it a little trickier than last week for sure, but it made it a lot more fun, kind of working my way through the field, having really good battles throughout, and yeah, strategy worked out pretty well too.
That first pit stop obviously helped out a little bit, definitely getting to the back bumper of Josh Chinsky and having a chance to go race for the lead. Just talk about that first kind of pit cycle that happened, especially the fact that Joshua Chinsky right in front of you went off and you almost got collected there.
Yeah, no, my thought was to kind of short fuel. I wanted to go on the alternates and kind of close the gap a little bit, hopefully have a quicker stop, so that all worked out well. And yeah, I feel gutted for Josh. He just, on those prime tires, it's really tricky on that outlap. I think he just pushed a little too hard, but it was too bad because he had great pace. He could have easily won it too.
Next week we head to, now we're staying in Indianapolis, but we're going on the oval next week and talk about your preparations running around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway oval.
So in this case, there won't be because I have to be out of town next week for the only race I'll miss. But it'll be interesting. I'll be excited. I'll be tuning in on the broadcast for sure and seeing who can duke it out.
All right. And anybody you would like to thank for your race win tonight?
Yeah, I would like to thank the guys at XMS for organizing, Josh for doing the legwork and kind of organizing the series. Thank the team as well, SRT Esport, and lastly, thanking you guys, Slow Motion Broadcasting, for the broadcast.
Well, congratulations, Dave. You're a two-time winner this season here at XMS, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Dave Menino, our race winner here. Looks like Bailey Piotrowski not in the voice chat, so we'll bring in Stephen Hudek and have a chat with Stephen, our third place finisher, Stephen Hudek, in the broadcast booth. Yeah, in the broadcast booth. A good third place finish, really. Had some good battles going on with Sophia Connell behind you, but you get a podium finish here tonight.
Yeah, it was a really, really awesome battle with Sophia there at the end. It was awesome battle.
You got through the first pit stops, obviously went to the alternate tire. Talk about just some of the different tire strategies that you were seeing and how you were strategizing this race.
I knew that I was pretty good for tire wear on the soft tire. So I was actually thinking of starting on the alternate tire, and but seeing as nobody ahead of me, actually I think no one started on the alternate tire, so I just kind of followed suit there. But I knew that I had some decent tire wear in the bag there, so that's kind of why I went with the double alternate for my two stops. I think Sophia, she went hard, soft, and someone else ahead of me, I think, did hard, soft, hard. So there was definitely a lot of different strategy involved.
Next week, we stay in Indianapolis, but instead of on the road course, we're going around the 2.5 mile speedway. What are your preparations looking like for next week?
Well, thankfully, the iRacing official series is running the oval, so I've been getting my laps in, practicing for qualifying. Thankfully, I will have somebody spotting me next week because that is really important on the oval races. I've generally been pretty good on Indy with the Indy Lights car, or not the Indy Lights car, the Indy Pro 2000. But I haven't competed in the INDYCAR quite yet, so it'll be interesting to see.
And who would you like to thank for getting you this third place finish tonight?
Oh man, my wife for letting me do this and making sure that I was fed and everything before the race after work.
Well, good. Well, congratulations on a third place finish, and we'll see you next week for the oval race around Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.
Stephen Hudek, our third place finisher. Ron, it was a good race, but now we have to look on to next week when we go on the Super Speedway oval, and I think we're going to see some interesting things happen there, especially for anybody who hasn't raced on the oval before.
Oh, we are going to see some incredible racing there. May just be the IndyCar nerd in me speaking, but my God, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, there's a very good reason why the sport's crown jewel race is held there every single Memorial Day weekend, has pretty much been held every single Memorial Day weekend since 1911, with the exception of World War I, World War II, and the 2020 pandemic year. It is always some fantastic racing. We talk about the draft, the slipstream. That's going to be a big factor. Battling the conditions around that track is going to be super tough as well. We were talking about them a lot throughout this race on the road course. Think of how bad it's going to affect those drivers when they're going a steady click of 240, having to lick the stamp and set it, heading off through the four corners around this racetrack. That's going to be a whole lot of fun to look forward to in 1 week's time. But this isn't the only action you can catch here on Slow Motion Broadcasting every single week. Of course, you can catch this series on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The day before this, though, on Wednesdays, you can catch the action from the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. They're entering the final 4 races of their season. Had a pretty good one, rain-soaked race at Oran Park yesterday, and that's going to be a pretty good one in 1 week's time. I believe they're going to be running at Fuji, so that's going to be a pretty good race. Come time for the weekends, though, we have got you absolutely booked. The Formula V Weekend Warriors you can catch on Saturdays at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then, come time for Sundays, we have got you covered with the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at 1:45 and the Spec Racer Fords at 3:45. But that doesn't even end it for the racing action. You can catch XSLR on Sunday nights at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not going to be running this week, I believe, but Adam, you guys are coming up to the second half of that season for XSLR with the 87 Cup cars. So you want to give us a preview as to what to expect in these next 4 races for XSLR?
Well, XSLR, of course, as you mentioned, the 87 NASCAR Cup car, and that is a car that has no restrictor plates, very, very difficult to drive. Oh, and let's just put a bunch of those cars around Charlotte Motor Speedway, Talladega, Daytona, and Pocono, some of the toughest tracks that you can race those on. So we are going to be in for quite a show in just a couple of weeks' time. The next race on May 18th, and that will be held at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, which all I'm going to say, I am predicting some carnage because a lot of those drivers in that series are not oval racers. They actually started off the year on a dirt oval in the 410 wing sprint car, made it out all right. You know, some little bit of drive seat time to get used to driving a 900 horsepower car like the 410 wing sprint car. And now they get to go even bigger and better with the 87 NASCAR Cup car. So very excited for that here on May 18th for the XSLR series.
And that gives all the viewers tuning into this broadcast tonight a very good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And don't miss out on the next race of this season next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch the action 100 laps on the 2.5 mile long Indianapolis Oval, and hopefully all of you will be able to catch that. But as for this broadcast tonight for round number 2 of the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Adam Thomsen joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you also very much for watching this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.